Morning, peeps. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Hopefully you guys are all doing well. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button. If you guys are new to the channel, don't forget as well to like and share the vids. Also, don't forget, we've got 2 lives this week to put in your diary. This Wednesday, 7 o'clock, all the build-up to Eubank versus Smith. Obviously, we'll talk other stuff as well. That will get going at 7 o'clock. And Saturday, live watch-along for Eubank versus Smith. For now, it's going to be 8 o'clock. I'm just trying to find out the main event ring walk time. If it's a ring walk time of 10:30, 11, then we're going to push it forward a bit or back a bit to a later start, just because there's no point in doing a 3-hour build-up. Although I do want to get a couple of the undercard fights, I'm not going to start at 8 for a ring walk at 11. So yeah, for now, it's 8 o'clock, but that might change, but I'll let you guys know throughout the week. All right, we're going to break the mold a bit on this channel. I'm trying to think of all the videos, and we've done well over 1,000 videos on this channel. I probably have spoken about MMA once or twice, maybe a Conor McGregor video or something. Although I'm a massive MMA fan, we do keep it strictly boxing. But I do think the return of Jon Jones deserves a conversation. For me, the greatest MMA fighter there's ever been. And look, I understand if you're an Anderson Silva fan or a GSP or a Khabib or a Fedor or Demetrius Johnson, I get it. But for me, is the best fight we've ever seen. And there was a time as well where I thought, and this is before Conor McGregor, I thought he was going to be that crossover star that the UFC desperately needed. Good-looking kid, charismatic, again, a great fighter, had that sponsorship with Nike, which was very rare at the time. No one was getting those sponsors. It was things like Tap Out and stuff. He came and got the Nike sponsor, and his ascendancy was like that. It was a steam train. You thought that there was no one going to go in there and even get close to him. It was like that. And then to say it fell off a cliff is an understatement. He had the issues outside of the octagon when he hit and run that he did with a pregnant lady and then just ran away. And then you found out about the partying and the cocaine usage. And then obviously the PD stuff. It was just nightmare after nightmare after nightmare. He's not been in the octagon for nearly 3 years now. He's put on a lot of size, which might be good, might not. And now he's going to have a run at the heavyweight division, something I thought he would have done 7, 8 years ago. He spoke about doing it around 2013. Here we are now, 2023, and Jon Jones is finally about to do something that everyone thought he was going to do. Now, this run is so important for the UFC. I honestly, I can't stress how big this is for Dana White and the UFC. They've tied him down to an 8-year deal, which is what the UFC, they do. They lock you down. I think we'll probably do another video on that someday. But they tied him to an 8-year deal. An 8-fight deal, apologies. Which, to be fair to Jon Jones, probably will be 8 years because he doesn't really fight. But they tied him down to an 8-fight deal. And I think the UFC are desperate for him to win. Desperate. And this is no disrespect to his opponent, Gane, but Gane isn't going to be a needle mover for the UFC. He just won't, right? They're desperate for him to win just because the UFC are in a weird place. The UFC have always had stars. Like, even when someone goes, someone else pops up, right? You think, oh my God, they're going to struggle. Someone else seems to pop up and sort of do massive pay-per-view buys for them. They don't have that right now. They simply don't have that. You think of like 5 years ago, what they had on their roster was just sensational in terms of guys and girls that can put bums on seats. Ronda Rousey, pay-per-view monster. Honestly, hitting that 1 million pay-per-view barrier, hitting it. Conor McGregor, blowing it off the roof. Jon Jones, I think him versus Daniel Cormier, the second fight, they had 800,000 pay-per-view buys. Brock Lesnar, 1 million plus. Nate Diaz was there as well. So you had good, strong pay-per-view guys and girls. They don't have that anymore. They don't have that anymore. Izzy doesn't do that. Does good numbers, doesn't do that. Kamaru Usman just got flatlined by Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards won't do that. So they're struggling right now, and so that's why they desperately need Jon Jones to come back and be what he once was. That, ladies and gentlemen, ain't going to happen. And trust me, I just told you how much of a Jon Jones fan I am. But Jon Jones now is 34, 35. Jon Jones abused his body in his 20s. You get away with it in your 20s. We all do. We all get away with it in 20s. But the problem is, it will catch up to you in your 30s. And it's not like Jon Jones, and look, I don't know him personally, I don't know people that do know him, but it's not like Jon Jones is a choir boy. It's not like in the last 3 years since he hasn't fought, he's been doing great and just living like a nun. Yeah, of course he isn't. He's a party animal. We know this, right? It's there. He tells us. The proof's out there. He's a party animal. You can't get away with doing that in your 30s. You can barely get away with doing it in your 20s, but he was so much better than everyone else. It was light work. Jon Jones did interviews saying that before fights he would get hammered. Like literally blackout hammered. He would take cocaine. He would do everything. And he was just winning fights based on pure talent. And then he came up against guys that pushed him. Gustafsson pushed him. Cormier pushed him. And then he realized, okay, that has to stop. But he still continued. He still continued. He's a party animal. And I don't think you can do that in your 30s. You certainly can't do that and come up against CIRYL Gane. Or CIRYL Gane. I don't know how people pronounce his name. You can't do that against him. He's a killer. He's a killer. And the one thing Jon Jones had over everyone, apart from just being better and being more talented, he was bigger than everyone. Jon Jones was the biggest light heavyweight. He was bigger than everyone. He's not bigger than CIRYL Gane. It's that fact. He's not. He's not. So what he had always had the size difference. He had the height difference. He had the reach difference. He had always had those three things against everyone. He doesn't have that anymore. Does he still have the skill and the experience? Those are waning. Those are waning. So look, I want Jon Jones to come back and kick ass. I'm desperate to see it because again, he's my favorite fighter. But look, I've been watching combat sports for a very, very long time, and father time waits for no one. And unless you're Bernard Hopkins who lives like a nun, right, does every single thing correct, you ain't your best in your 30s. You ain't at your peak. Unless you're a LeBron James who spends, what did he say he spends? I think it was something ridiculous, well over $1 million a year on his body, put it that way. Unless you're that, you ain't surviving. You ain't surviving. And another thing about those two athletes I mentioned, active. LeBron James, active. You think LeBron, as good as LeBron James is right now, and could be the greatest basketball player of all time, you think he can take 3 years off and just come back in his mid-30s and dominate? Get the fuck out of here. No chance. And that's the problem right now with Jon Jones. I want it to work. I really do. Ain't happening. Ain't happening. The UFC are desperate for it to happen. Ain't happening. Ain't happening. You can't do what he's done to his body. Trust me, I hope that when's his fight? In March. I hope that someone clips this up in March and laughs at me. You look at, you don't know shit. I hope that happens because I'm his biggest fan. I want to be here in March and someone has clipped me up and I'm here and I'm apologizing. I'm praying to God that I'm doing that. I don't think it's going to happen. But regardless if it happens or doesn't happen, he's still for me the greatest MMA fighter we have ever seen. And it's a shame that it went like that because his ascendancy was on another level. But yeah, it's like they're desperate, the UFC. They're trying to pull all their old school stuff. Come back, Conor McGregor. They need to find new stars, man. They need to find new stars desperately. All right, guys, girls, I'm late. I've got to go to work. Peace and love.